Excuse me?
Yes, sir?
Say, what's that tape you're playing?
What's up, posers, and welcome to the Guest List. I am your host, Justin Hensley, and this is the side show where I invite guests on to make lists. So today, joining us is longtime friend of the show, Dave Brown, writer of the newsletter Oklahoma Lefty, as well as the blog of 20 years by that name. We've had Dave on the show several times throughout the years, so he is a familiar voice to you if you've listened to the catalog for a while now. I also co-host the show Bookenders with Dave, where we talk about an album through the lens of its first and last song. And very fun show. We were going to do an episode last month, but we had some technical difficulties, and Dave wasn't feeling well that day. So we wound up scrapping that recording, and we will probably come back to that exact same premise soon, so be on the lookout for that. But I was very happy to have Dave on. You know, what I want to do with this show is have on past guests as well as new ones. Like, this isn't all about just finding the next new name. I want to bring people back and maybe give them different prompts. So in the future, you might see Dave again talking about different lists. So I very much like the idea of having people back and tackling other subjects. This is a fun list. Today, I had Dave put together a list of his favorite albums from the 2000s. But specifically albums that he would have been listening to at the time. So no records that he would have found in 2010, 2015 that came out in the 2000s. He had to be aware of it by the time midnight struck on January 1st, 2010. So it's a fun little challenge. I like that Dave added a little twist to the prompt that I gave him. And it's a fun little conversation. I enjoy talking to Dave. We could talk for hours. We don't go super duper long on this one because we have a little bit of a rich structure, but it's a fun conversation. I really enjoyed it. And then we talk a little bit about Dave's background and where he grew up and where he's from and how he got into punk. And it's a lot of fun stuff there. So I appreciate you all for listening, and you can follow us on all forms of social media, all that good stuff. We're at Punk Lotto Pod. And enjoy this conversation with Dave Brown. All right, today we are joined here by a familiar voice. You may know our next guest from his numerous appearances on the show, as well as co-hosting the show Bookenders on the Patreon, as well as the Oklahoma Lefty Substack. We're joined by our good friend, Dave Brown. How's it going, Dave?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, been looking forward to this. Yeah,
this is our inaugural recording at my new place, so this will be fun to see how different it sounds going forward. But excited to do this one.
Yeah, me too.
So the premise, you know the premise. This is a show where we invite guests on to make lists, and so far I have given out the prompt to 3 guests now, and the first one took the list I had and was just like, yep, let's do one of those. And then the next one was like, I kind of gave him the option to go obscure, but then he was like, I'm going to do obscure and punk specifically. And with your list today, we'll get into a little bit more. We're doing a specific time period. So that's a tease that we'll get into before we actually talk about the actual lists that we made here. But with the guest list, I like to get to know the guests a little bit, and we know you very well. But in case this is the first time anyone has heard you on the show, I thought we would do a little bit of background and, you know, what makes Dave Brown tick?
Oh, God. No one needs to know that. Hell, I don't even know if I know that.
So, most people know you as the Oklahoma Lefty, and that you are currently from Oklahoma, but you're not originally from Oklahoma. So, where did you grow up?
So I was born in Springfield, Missouri, which is, if you're familiar with where Branson, Missouri is, it's southern Missouri, just north of the Ozarks. So, yeah, basically Dixie adjacent, and lived there until I was about 10 or 11. And then we moved to Central Florida, a town called Lakeland, which is basically halfway in between Tampa and Orlando. Lived there until I was 17, and then we moved up to Oklahoma, and I've been here ever since.
Was there a lot of music in your household growing up?
There was. So my mom especially loves a lot of 60s R&B, rock and roll, soul music. Her favorite artist of all time is Tina Turner. And in fact, that was the first concert I ever saw, was Tina Turner on the Private Dancer tour. And it was so good. Oh my God. But yeah, there was, Dad liked a lot of the same type of stuff. And then for a while, they both got really into reggae. That was after we took a vacation to Jamaica. And they didn't get too deep, not too far beyond, Bob Marley and Bob Marley adjacent stuff. So we had lots of Peter Tosh and stuff like that in the house. But yeah, there was always music, and it was something that I connected with at a pretty early age.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are some of your, I guess, early musical memories when it comes to you taking notice of it? Like really being like, oh, I really like this. This is mine.
So there were two things that when I was probably 5 or so that really grabbed me. One was the Blues Brothers movie, which I'm pretty sure we had HBO at the time. That's how I saw it. And I was captivated by that film and the concert scene at the end. I just absolutely loved it. And then the other were some Peter, Paul, and Mary concerts that played on PBS. I want to say those were often played during when they're begging for money, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
But
the pledge drives.
Thank you. Yes. And I just remember seeing those and really, really enjoying those songs and the way that those three sang together and the way their voices mixed. And at some point, I know we had on vinyl the Peter, Paul, and Mary 10, which was a greatest hits, like at their 10-year anniversary that they had put out. They came out like 71 or 72 or something like that. And I loved that record. That was great. It had Puff the Magic Dragon, Leaving on a Jet Plane, If I Had a Hammer. They did basically folk standards, I guess, at this point, and lots of Bob Dylan songs. And so those were the two things that really informed me, this folk group, and then basically a primarily white band doing soul music. Even though they kept calling themselves the Blues, and what they were playing was the blues. And I'm like, guys, you're playing soul music. You're doing a Wilson Pickett cover. Which, of course, I didn't realize till much later.
I want to say Tim from Pop Kid also brought up the Blues Brothers when we had him on for the last guest list. I feel like that came up.
He did. I felt very much a kindred spirit in that conversation. Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, that's like one of their entryways to a lot of music early on. So that is interesting. It is, I guess film and television is where a lot of music is the first time you are noticing it.
Oh,
even
yeah.
If radio and music are in your house.
Yeah. And we listened to the radio in the car, but really for me, once we got cable and MTV became disgustingly important. Mm-hmm. Not like after my Blues Brothers and Peter, Paul, and Mary thing, I was really into Michael Jackson and breakdancing. And yes, it's very embarrassing now to mention that. And then I got into Prince. And so, I was like in second, third grade. So I'm just following whatever is very popular at the time. And then at some point I discovered MTV, and especially as like in junior high and high school, that was, even when you were a obnoxious punk kid, you still were watching 120 minutes on MTV because of course you did. That's how else were you going to learn what was new and upcoming without Dave Kendall telling you?
I just now imagine you, since you mentioned the breakdancing thing, you with your piece of cardboard laid down on the sidewalk and you just like spinning on your head, like doing that like really fast spin thing that they can do, wearing like a bucket hat.
No, I was never that good. I was never good. I
even took locking.
Yeah, pretty much. There was like I could do slide things really well, like the moonwalk and some other type stuff. I could do the worm.
Oh, wow.
That was about as athletic as I got.
Too Hot Scott, better watch out.
No, more like Otis.
Deep wrestling references off the bat.
Of course, if I tried to do that now, I'd break something.
Oh, yeah. Or I'd get on the ground and wouldn't be able to get up. That's the weird part, where you're just like, I used to just get off the ground. How? Why is this harder? It's because my knees and elbows hurt. That's why.
Aging, man. It's the pits.
Yeah, I turned 40 this year. It's going to be fun. Yeah.
Oh, you whippersnapper.
I am exceedingly not a whippersnapper anymore. So when do you start to get into punk or hardcore or even, I guess, alternative? You would get that from like MTV and the radio mainly, but kind of pushing you towards the world of music that you listen to today.
So it really started in, and I'm so dorky for remembering this, it started in 1988. It was U2. And at the time they released a music video for the live version of Pride in the Name of Love that appeared in Rattle and Hum, the film, and on the album. And for whatever reason, I was not impressed with the videos from the Joshua Tree, but I saw this and again, I was transfixed. I just absolutely fell in love. Got Rattle and Hum, devoured it. By that Christmas, I think I had their entire discography up to that point, thanks to Christmas presents and birthday presents and everything. And I devoured it. And from there, I know I discovered a band called the Ocean Blue. I saw an interview with them on MTV News, and they mentioned U2. So I was like, okay, I have to check this out. And they're kind of they are like American Manchester kind of, but in the slow vein of that stuff. Still very, probably dream pop would in the modern parlance, whatever that word is. And
I've heard both. I wonder if it is one of those words that's both, actually.
It might be. But then I got into REM and The Cure, and I was introduced to the Smiths, and discovered 120 Minutes, and off to the races. So I came into things through post-punk, through college rock, through Manchester, and what is now probably just, or at least what in Europe is referred to as indie rock.
So I think the first thing I knew about you was that you were a writer. Like, I knew the name Oklahoma Lefty from maybe just seeing posts that you'd written before.
Which blows my mind. Like, when you were like, oh, you write that? So I was like, how the fuck would you know this?
I somehow had come across your blog. I don't know how I found it initially. Maybe you liked a post and we hadn't talked yet, and I don't know, but I'd seen your blog before you and I started talking. So yeah, because I remember the name specifically. It's a very memorable name. But so when did writing come in? Because I feel like so many of us, especially with this guest list, we're all kind of obsessed with music. Some people that takes different forms and how that manifests. Some people write songs or start a band or do that kind of thing. Or do things like this, make a podcast, or writing, which is you did. So when did writing kind of come into play?
Oh, man. So I know my sophomore English teacher encouraged me to write and said I was a good writer. Then when we moved to Oklahoma, because of the way that school was structured in Florida versus Oklahoma, I only needed one credit to graduate. But at the time, you couldn't just take the one class and do other stuff. Like, there's a lot more flexibility with high school now. So I took the newspaper class, and that's where I started really writing more. And I even did a music-related column, and it just kind of went from there. Off and on over during college years, I worked for a couple different college papers. I worked for one at a community college I went to. For one semester, I worked at one at another 4-year school I went to. I went to many colleges before I finally got a degree. So yeah, it just kind of happened. And like the blog specifically, I started writing in 2005. I was working at a call center, and a friend of mine there was also writing a blog, and he was the one who suggested the name Oklahoma Lefty to me because one of my nicknames at the time was Lefty, and for a multitude of reasons. So yeah, he suggested that maybe I start writing. And this was in the era, this was, pre-social media, when coming out of the 2004 election, when there was all this talk about the influence that blogs had. And so, yeah, I started writing that, and it was mostly about politics and eventually about I would write some about religion and other things. And then about 5 years in, I changed the focus to being primarily music. And that was pretty much the majority of the focus on that site until I closed shop with it last year. In fact, I timed the post to be on the 20th anniversary. So yeah, that's kind of my journey in, I did forget something. In the late the late 1990s, I produced a zine that I put out. It was called Caught Off Guard. And yeah, I did a handful of issues before I couldn't afford to do it anymore. And at the time I was working at a karaoke shop and had access to a copy machine, which is how the issues that did get made got made. Once I wasn't working there anymore, I couldn't figure out a way to produce it sustainably. And then a couple times over the years, I tried various different attempts at doing website things before blogs really became a thing. And now I've transitioned to using Substack because that's a nice little platform.
Yeah. I was going to ask what made the decision to end the actual WordPress blog and shift to a newsletter Substack format.
So it was actually Blogger, because I'm that old school. And I hate WordPress so much. I've used it. I used it for my old wrestling podcast, and it's clunky and cumbersome. And I'm not smart enough with web page shit to make it work. But I stopped using the old blog because of formatting changes. And I was actually in the process of putting together my top 100 records of the century so far, of the 21st century so far. And I could not get it to do what I wanted it to do. And I'd already been doing stuff on Substack for a little while when Substack made a big play to get a whole bunch of comic professionals to join and use them exclusively to put out content. I got curious, and so I started one just for shits and giggles. And when it was during that time putting together that list, that I was like, okay, I can't fuck with this blog anymore. It just is out of date and it doesn't do what I want it to do. So I just transitioned to using the Substack.
I mean, it's a nice, good closing point, 20 years to the date, that's a good run with a blog, because so many blogs from especially the 2000s era just disappeared over time. And I suppose the blogger just doesn't maintain it if you choose to do nothing with it, and they just disappear over the years, or they get hacked and wiped and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. For me, it had gotten to the point, I was pretty much only using it for year-end lists, and I had stopped writing on a regular basis, but I was keeping it around just for year-end lists. And it was weird. That's one of the few things that I have consistently over the years gotten some pretty good feedback about. And I enjoy doing them. And so I didn't want to stop. But once it became clear that, okay, this thing just doesn't, for whatever reason, work the way I want it to anymore, there's no reason to keep it going. It's still up. It's still out there. You can go read all the old crap that I wrote.
Yeah, I recommend people go check it out. It's a fun archive of, stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff in there. The pivot to music makes it especially useful for things like we like to do, talking about music on the internet. So it's a really fun resource into Dave's particular tastes in music. And
oh yeah, and I absolutely go back and go, okay, because for a while I would do a lot of the currently listening posts, which I do versions of now, where I'd make playlists or lists of songs. And so there are times I'm like, when did I discover so-and-so? And I'll go back and I'll just search, because I know I probably put them on one of those posts, and I'll get a ballpark idea of when I first started listening to whoever. And so yeah, it's a nice for nerdy people like us who keep track of that crap. It is a good tool to go back and search and find stuff.
Yeah, I wish that I had one singular place where I put all of that kind of stuff too, because I had various different blogs throughout the years. I think we had versions of WordPress, versions of Blogger, we had message boards, we had I say we, meaning me and Dylan, and like tumblers, several different tumblers. So it's like, I wish I just had one place where I'd kept every one of those lists, because some of those are gone. Like, I can't even like find them to access them myself anymore, which is a bummer, because I would like to be like, what did I think was the top 10 albums of 2015? You know?
Yeah.
Back then, not now, what I thought then.
I need, I might, now that you mention that, I don't foresee Blogger going anywhere unless Google decides that they're just going to stop that service, which the graveyard of Google services that are gone is immense. So I should probably, at the very least, get all my year-end lists and the bigger reviews I did over time and dump those onto the Substack. Because I've done that with all of my old podcasts. As I've got the full archive of all the dumb voice, audio shit I've done is there. I just wanted one place for it all to be.
Yeah, you've done several different audio throughout the years. The most recent one you were doing was One Band, Five Songs, which is a very fun series where you choose an artist and talk about them through the lens of 5 of their songs. And loved that show. It was such a fun show.
Thanks. That was the best thing I think I ever did, audio-wise. I think I came across an idea and a format that worked really well. And the problem now is it takes so fucking long to edit. I was going to go back and edit some of the old episodes that are only available on Spotify to put them on the archive, and just opening that up and I was looking at it, I was like, oh my God, this is going to take hours just for one episode. So I might like con my son into doing it or something for me.
But yeah, I mean, sadly, that show had to go away due to primarily Spotify and their weirdness and issues that we don't really run into with other platforms.
Yeah, they get, I think some of it is there's a spotlight on them, and
yeah.
I used their podcast hosting platform, which has gone through multiple different name changes. And what sucks is it's super easy to use and it's free. But yeah, if you have music on there, you will get cease and desist letters. For a while, I was getting them every day. And now I go through whenever I get them, and I still get them periodically. There's like, you can respond to it, and there's an option that says, I have permission to use this. And I just click that because I'm doing it under fair use for commentary.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, come on, man. Even my most listened to episode ever was still minuscule compared to most things. So it's like, what are you trying to do? Just make my life harder? And it's nothing personal. It's just some algorithm, probably.
Yeah. Just probably an AI bot trawling through episodes and realizing, oh, this is a song you don't own. Well,
yeah, at this point,
flag it. Yeah, weirdly, we've been lucky to not be hit by that yet, but I think it's just because the bots haven't found us yet, and I think it will be a matter of time. I'm off of Spotify as a user, so like we still put our show there, but I don't care what happens to it if it's on there, you know?
Yeah, I think the fact that what keeps you off of radars is one, being as niche as it is, and 2, that you don't play full songs. I didn't have problems until I started playing full songs and there's more to it than that, but no one cares. But that's when it really, I think I got noticed. And once it got noticed, then they just kept looking at it. That's my theory, at least.
You're on their radar. So then it's like, oh, what else are you putting up here? Yeah. Makes sense. It sucks. I enjoyed the show very much. I think you're a great podcaster as well as writer. So that's why I wanted you to do the Bookenders show with me, because I just think it's a really fun idea. And
yeah,
we've got a few of those done, and we were going to do one, and then that episode kind of just fell apart. So we'll try that one again soon.
Between me being sicker than a dog and uncontrollably coughing, and then my internet going out, it was a mess.
It was a recipe for disaster. Well, thank you for answering these questions for me. As if this is an interview for a job, but you're hired. So,
yay.
So let's get into the list making portion. So I pitched you the list of options. And of course, when I send that list out, I say, or if you have another idea, we could do that as well. So you kind of had another idea and combined it with an existing idea in the pitch that I sent you. And you decided to come up with a list of your favorite albums from the 2000s. But, caveat, it has to be something you would have been listening to at that time in the 2000s. Correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, that was my idea. I was like, well, let's do something, hone in, just do something kind of specific just for fun. And I know you mentioned in the list of options that you can do something real specific or more broad of all time. And I don't know why I picked the 2000s. Really don't. I was just like, hey, let's just do that. And then when I was looking at, because I'm a big dork, I have a Google Doc that has lists of my favorite records that have been released each year of the years I've been alive. Interestingly, 1974, the year I was born, did not have anything good. So I had nothing on that year. So I was looking through, and even on that list, I have then decade lists in it. It's, I got problems, but I was looking at that and I was like, at least two of these in the top 5 are records I did not discover until after 2010. And I really wanted to, that's when I got the idea of focusing on, okay, what would I have actually been spinning between 2000 and 2009? And so I also wanted to give myself some more limitations to see what I could come up with.
Yeah, I like that. I like the decision to go with a little bit more challenging way of looking at things, which I don't know if it's necessarily even more challenging, but, just putting specific guide rails for what you're going to talk about. Yeah. And it's an interesting list. Some stuff that listeners of the show may remember, but I think it'll be interesting to kind of revisit some of that stuff as well, too.
Yeah. At least two of these records have been covered in the Punk Lotto Pod universe at some point.
Yeah. The PLPEU.
Extended universe. Yes.
So I kind of let the guests kind of choose the order that they want to reveal their selections. So wherever you want to start, we can go.
We're gonna count this down like we're Casey Kasem, man.
All right.
So we'll start with my honorable mention, and that is the Hudson Falcons' sophomore album, For Those Whose Hearts and Souls Are True.
Yeah, you shot me a message this week, actually, because we were talking about planning it and scheduling it, and you wanted to throw this one in there as almost an audible, honorable mention type thing. So I listened to this record, and I'll get into my thoughts in a little bit, but as far as the band, who are they? They weren't a band that I was super familiar with outside of, I know you were a fan.
Yes, these guys are from New Jersey. And it's primarily the lead singer, guitarist, Mark Linsky. And they started out as very much a Stiff Little Fingers meets Bruce Springsteen type band. They put out a series of 7 inches, and then signed to GMM Records and put out their first 2 albums on GMM. And at the time, so I was introduced to them by this guy named Jim, who was one of the co-owners of a record store called Music Dimensions in Oklahoma City. I went into the store one day, and at the time, I had gotten really into Oi and street punk. And Jim excitedly comes up to me. He's like, David, I have to show you this band. It's the best band in the world played here last night. Ugliest fucking band I've ever seen, but the best band. And he handed me like 3 7 inches and a 4-band split comp CD. And that was my introduction to the Hudson Falcons. And I've been a fan ever since. When they played, the next time they played Oklahoma City, I went, and that was also the first show I ever saw the Roustabouts play. We'll talk about them later. But it was a fucking phenomenal show. I met the band, and it was also the first time I saw the GC5. So I met the GC5 that night and quickly became friends with Mark and have been friends with him ever since. I have watched this band grow, because this second album is kind of their more groggy album. Their guitar player, Uncle Chris, also spent time in Electric Frankenstein. He played with them for a while. But this lineup of the band, I can't remember the bass player and the drummer's names, but at the time they were these young kids, and they had this just incredible energy. And the performances on this record are so good. And Mark is this incredible guitar player. If you ever get a chance to see them live, I cannot recommend it enough. It's a great time. They're good people. Mark's wife is always at the merch table, and she is super nice. Her name's Carrie. I love these people so much. They're just wonderful. And it does not hurt that their music freaking rules.
Yeah, I was surprised to see how big their discography actually is. They have more albums than I thought they did.
Yeah, let's see here. Let me look. I've got their the hell's it called? Bandcamp pulled up, which I actually, to go to show how long I've known and that I'm friends with the band, I put this Bandcamp together for them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have 6 full-length albums.
Yeah, so, and it looks like a couple split LPs as well, too.
Yeah, they did a split LP with, they've done a few. One with the GC5, one with King Size Braces, at least one other one that I'm forgetting, I think. They've got 2 compilation albums, a singles collection, and then just a best of collection. And they eventually morphed into something I would say pretty similar to the Gaslight Anthem, in a heartland rock type of sound. But the problem that they ran into is a problem that a lot of bands from that scene that they came up in, the street punk scene of the 90s, is that they got labeled as either oi or oi adjacent. And that can be a stink that is very hard to wash off, because there are lots of folks that don't have high opinions of either that genre or the fans of that genre, which, I mean, in some cases, well, they're assholes who are fans of everything.
Yeah, sure. Name a genre. There's an asshole who's a fan of it.
Exactly. But yeah, so what did you think of this?
So this one was completely new to me. Like I knew the name and I knew you'd mentioned them, but I'd never listened to a record from them before. And I had a good time listening to this album. It was surprisingly, I won't say surprisingly hard to find. For some reason, this one's not on streaming, but like a couple of the other ones are. Like the records around it are, which I thought was interesting. But this was on Bandcamp, so I was able to listen to it there, thankfully. But yeah, I was kind of surprised by this one, just not entirely sure what I was going to get going into it. I didn't really read any like descriptions of what they played as well either. So there's definitely I'm fascinated by your 2000s interest in oi and street punk type stuff, because I mean there was that revival of it in the 2000s, and Hellcat was a big label that kind of pushed a lot of that kind of stuff, and there were some more labels around at the same time too doing that too. But it was just kind of an interesting period that that sound was very, very popular. And I was kind of curious how you kind of fell into that sound.
You know, I remember, again, going one day into Music Dimensions, and for whatever reason, I had just decided I want to try some oi. And I went in and I asked Jim, I was like, hey, I want to try something that's oi related. And he pulled out the then brand new Swingin' Utters album, A Juvenile Product of the Working Class, on cassette. The cassette was pink. It was great. Handed it to me and said, this is the album Social Distortion should have released. And that was around the time of the White Trash, White Light, White Heat, White Trash album, which I actually like.
Yeah, it's fun.
But so that was my real introduction. And as someone who grew up around a lot of oldies, what we called oldies at the time, 50s and 60s rock and roll, I have a soft spot for that stuff. And oi and street punk, the stuff at least that I gravitate towards, is basically that shit on speed or on coke or something. It's really amped up. And so, yeah, I saw that as a natural progression of the type of just standard, for lack of a term, basic rock and roll that I already liked.
That does make sense. It does also make sense why it is a genre that has a ton of bands, despite it not even really being even that big of a genre anymore. It's still like a very packed scene. Oi fans like Oi, I suppose, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, they really do. Yeah, okay. I'm glad you liked it. I absolutely love the final track, Open All Night. That is a Bruce Springsteen cover, a cover from Nebraska. I've asked Dylan at least once to check this out because I want to see what he thinks of it, because they play it as this just nonstop balls to the wall, foot on the gas, floored rock song. And when they play it live, it is great because it is one of those songs that it just kind of keeps going, and it normally closes their sets when I've seen them. And it's a hell of a closer.
Yeah, I didn't get to spend a ton of time with it this week since it was just added to the list so recently. But yeah, it was a fun little listen, and I'm definitely going to try and come back to it or maybe check out one of their other records.
Yeah, and on the streaming situation, so those first two records were put out by GMM, and GMM, for all intents and purposes, is out of business, from everything I can tell. And nothing that they had put out is on streaming now, unless some other label has reissued it. Their first album was reissued by another label. I want to say it's Street Anthem Records, but that's not the only record that's not available on streaming. Their next full length, Desire to Burn, which is possibly their best, and it's the record where they're transitioning into. No, it's not the next record. It's the record after the next one. Sorry, La Familia is the next one. Then Desire to Burn. Anyway. It came out on some teeny tiny label. It's not on streaming. I have sent the band information about here's information about DistroKid and stuff. So hopefully someday they'll get it all on streaming or all back on streaming, because at various points most of it was.
Well, that was considered an honorable mention. So what do you want to get into next?
Let's go into number 5, The Warrior's Code by Dropkick Murphys. So I got into Dropkick Murphys really early on. When I was asking about Oi at the record store, pretty early on I was handed the Dropkick Murphys 7-inch Fire and Brimstone. And then soon after that, I got their Boys on the Dock CD EP. And really for a good 10 years, I was a huge, huge fan of this band. And honestly, I think next to their debut, The Warrior's Code is the best thing they've ever done. This is their magnum opus. It was all downhill from here. Now, that having been said, not the next album, The Meanest of Times, which I did get and I did enjoy. The album after that, whose name I cannot remember, I thought sucked so bad that I gave up on the band, and I was on an episode of You Lost Me There. And talking about Dropkick Murphys and how I was done. They basically were like, okay, we found our formula. We know what works. We know what our fans like. Let's just keep doing that. And from a standpoint of, okay, these are, middle-aged grown-ass adults who have families and have bills to pay. And if they figured out a way to continue to make music and make a living off of it, excellent. Good for them. I'm very happy for them. I don't have to enjoy it. And so, yeah, I love this album. The Warriors Code, I think, is about as perfect a Dropkick Murphys album as you're going to get. And that, even that having been said, the song that they're most well known for, Shipping Up to Boston, I think stinks and is the worst song in the album and is not at all indicative of what they did, either what they did previously to this or to this record. Because really, up until this point, this was the album where they finally got the mix of the Celtic folk elements and the 77 style punk elements all to just gel in pretty much every song perfectly. Prior to that, if you go back to their early stuff, it's basically they're doing Stiff Little Fingers worship. And their first album is very Stiff Little Fingers, Clash self-titled, mixed in with some Celtic folk elements and a couple of ballads and a couple acoustic songs. And then it just kind of evolved from there. And I really enjoyed that evolution. And that's, to me, that's where it hit the apex with this album. What did you think of this?
I've heard several Dropkick Murphys throughout the years. Not every album, of course, but I've heard a good chunk of them, maybe like a third, maybe not even like half or anything like that. But so I was familiar with the band, and I knew of this album, and I wasn't fully sure if this is one that I had actually listened to in full or not. Revisiting it, if I'd listened to it before, or visiting it for the first time, I really enjoyed it, and I was having a good time listening to it, and I was like, yeah, this is the kind of version of Dropkick Murphys that I think I like the most. And then I got to Ship It Up to Boston, and I was like, it didn't even feel like it belonged on this record. Like, that song feels like it should be the next one. It should be The Meanest of Times. And it seems like they wrote Shipping Up to Boston, and they were like, let's do more of that. Let's follow that trail, like the extra Celtic, extra, extra Irishness of it. And they kind of drop a lot of the more like street punk, oi, that kind of stuff that is in their earlier material, like or the classic UK punk thing that they're influenced by. So it was kind of funny just to hear this record and be like, yeah, this rocks. And only one of the largest songs, punk songs of the last 25 years is in this record. And I guess you could blame the Departed movie.
Yeah, that has to be it, because otherwise I'm like, there are so many better songs on this record.
Yeah.
Just so many better songs. And also one of my favorite things on this album is the Green Fields of France cover, in which you realize that, Al Barr can actually sing. And he sings the shit out of that song. It is just heart-wrenching. I also love the nice little shot they take at Blink-182 and their drummer in Wicked Sensitive Crew, where they talk about pop punk tough guys with neck tattoos. I'm like, that's about Travis Barker. Hell yeah. That made me laugh so hard. It still does. Every time I hear that song, I crack up.
Yeah, when I was listening to that one, I was like, there's a story here. I don't know exactly who they're referring to, because there's a lot of people that kind of fit that description, but yeah, that is funny to think that it's Blink-182.
Well, I mean, you think about it. He's got a bunch of neck tattoos. He always, in his pictures, he's looking like he just tries to look so tough. And it's like, honey, you're a string bean. What are you going to do? And, he's got his Can I Say Dag Nasty tattoo right in the middle of his neck. And it's like, I love that band. Why are you besmirching their name? Ugh. And I say this, and he is disgustingly talented, though. I can't take anything away from his musical ability.
He's like one of those guys that's just like a phenomenally talented musician, but if you hear him talk, it's just kind of like, what's behind those eyes? It doesn't feel like there's a lot there, but clearly there is, because he's got like a musical prowess. So unless he's an idiot savant, as they used to say, I don't think that's the case. It's just like, I guess he expresses himself through his music more than his words, because not the most eloquent speaker.
Or as they said once on an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000, he's like an idiot savant, minus the savant.
Yeah, Dropkick Murphys are a funny band, because it's like, hey, Dropkick Murphys have a new record out. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to like it. Like, I don't think it's going to be something that I want to hear from them.
No, and now that the Al Barr has stepped away, and Ken Casey, the bass player, is now just singing, and he's great as like a secondary vocalist. I watched some live footage of them recently because Al Barr came back and did a couple songs, and he still sounds great. And I listened to some of the Ken Casey songs because they played some old classic songs, and it's like, oof, oh honey, you can't sing. Can you not call Mike McCooligan, your old lead singer? He's still in town. Can you not give him a call, please? So, should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on to the next one.
All right. So the next album is from the Ducky Boys, and it's 3 Chords and the Truth.
And when I call your name, you won't be there. And when I wake in pain, you won't be there. Out on the avenue, I fell in love with you, and I'm falling into now a bitterness. Yeah, oh, I don't really wanna be alone tonight. Yeah, I want you by my side, but I'll be alone tonight. Alright. No matter what I do.
So one thing I've noticed in the Discord, which if you are a fan of this show, you should A, join the Patreon, but B, join the Discord community because we're dope as hell in there. But we got that little Last FM gimmick channel where you can show what you're listening to. And I've noticed recently that this album cover has shown up a lot on your charts.
I guess, yeah. I definitely listened to it in preparation of the show, and I probably did like a monthly post that also had it from the same pull. It's a longer record as far as like track count goes, so I could see that being why it maybe like shows up a little bit more, because like it's 16 tracks. A lot of other records are like 10, 12, 13, so it kind of like hops up higher up in the list.
Yeah. So this, okay. Am I going to be disappointed? What'd you think of this before I talk my talk?
No. I actually had a good time with this record, and this is not an album that I'd ever listened to. In fact, I'd never really listened to any Ducky Boys LPs, but I do have a slight connection to this band, and I'm trying to find the name of it was a compilation that I had where it was a lot of like hardcore that I don't like. It was, let's see, I think it was called like War Games or something along those lines. Let's see if I can find it really quick while I'm thinking here. Because I remember there was stuff on there that I, like, just didn't like. It was, I don't think I liked anything, except there was one Ducky Boys song on the album, on the compilation. And I'm trying to actually find out which one that was. Because it was like the only thing that was like not annoying to me. If that makes sense. Because like so much of it was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot stand this. Like Madball was on there, and like that introduced me to my dislike of the band Madball, and there was just nothing on that compilation. So I'm actually trying to kind of pull it up now because Rate Your Music didn't have it. Let's see.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll kind of give my story. I had heard of this band in large part because of the Dropkick Murphys. The Dropkick Murphys' first release was a split 7-inch EP with the Ducky Boys, which was also the Ducky Boys' first release. So these guys have been thick as thieves friends for decades. And there was a record store in Norman, Oklahoma, it's still around, called Guest Room Records, and I just stumbled on this in there. And I was like, oh, yeah, I need to check this out. And oh my God, from the first moment I put this on, I was blown away. I love this album so much. It sounds to me just as fresh now as it did 22 years ago, or 21 years ago when I got it. It's just, you can tell that these were guys who came up in the street punk scene, but there is, as much heartland rock going on in this as there is street punk.
So I found it. The name of the compilation was called War Music, delivered by Thorpe Records and Stillborn Records. And listen to this. Okay, track listing. I'm not going to do the whole track listing, but the ones that jump out to me the most. Blood for Blood, Agnostic Front, Madball, with honors on here. I don't mind with honor. Northside Kings, the infamous band that the guy punched Danzig out at the show.
Okay, they're okay in my book, because that, if nothing else, just for that meme, that's great.
Hatebreed are on here, and it's Blacklisted's on here. They're the last song. I did not realize that Blacklisted were on here. I wonder if I hear that one particular song again, if I'd recognize it immediately. But out of this whole thing, I didn't like anything except the one Ducky Boy song on here. It's called Looking Back. And I don't even know what album. I don't even know if. I don't think it was this record.
Looking Back, that might be on the next one.
It could be. Well, yeah, it could be, because the compilation was 04 when they were on Thorpe, which this record came out on Thorpe.
Yeah,
but maybe it's not. Maybe it was an original or off of a 7-inch or something. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not on their previous album either. So, what year did that comp come out?
That compilation was 2004, so the same year as this record. So.
Okay, so I bet it was a song that didn't make it on the album.
Yeah, probably a B-side or something. This is apparently given out at Hellfest 2004. So that kind of is why this was produced, but it is a sampler. It was for the labels, you know. Yeah, so to me, they were always this, like, the Ducky Boys are an oasis on a CD that I don't like.
Yeah, they're such a good band. I have followed everything they've done since then. I have kept up with Mark Lind, who's the singer and bass player. I've followed all of his other projects, and it's all because of this record. I love this thing so much. And it's seriously, if nothing else, if you're listening to this and you want to take a sample of something from this record, listen to Alone Tonight. That song is like perfect. Is a perfect rock anthem.
Yeah, I had a good time with it. When I put it on, because I think it's not the first one I put on. It was the first one I hadn't heard that I put on. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I really had a good time listening to this record. So I need to find that song that I used to like and see if I still like that song. And then I need to go back and listen to some more Ducky Boys, I guess. Well,
pretty much their entire catalog, for the most part, is available on streaming, at least on Spotify, which doesn't help you at all. But I'm sure you can find it on YouTube Music.
Yeah, that's where I found this one. Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and move on. At number, what are we at? Number 3? I can't count backwards. Yeah, number 3 is an album you and I have discussed already previously in the past. One Heartbeat Away from Hell by the Staggers.
Let the earth die screaming as I laugh out loud. Let the earth die screaming as I walk tall and proud. Will scorch your heart, I will burn your soul, keep you locked in a cage. I will laugh when you cry, rejoice when you die, 'cause I am that deranged. I mean, gnashing teeth and sweating blood, and asking to be spared. I won't stop, dear vessels pop. You should never have dared. Let the earth die screaming as I laugh out loud. Let the earth die screaming as I walk tall and proud.
Yeah, I believe we did this on Bookenders, correct?
We did. Second episode of Bookenders. And it's incredible. It's, the tagline that this band had always had was, what if the Misfits were from Texas? And it's very accurate, but also this band was 10,000 times better than the Misfits ever were. I'm sure that is a hot take, but I don't care.
Yeah, I'd say it's a hot take, but I also see where you're coming from. And also, as far as musicianship and performing abilities, I do think the Staggers might have most of the rest of the Misfits beat as far as that goes. Danzig can write a song. I mean, I'll give him that, but he doesn't play the instruments on them either. So.
Yeah, no, he old Danny Boy can write a song, but he sure as shit can't play guitar as as we learned by one of those Sam Hain or Samhain or I'm going to snort some coke on a wrestling show band. I don't know.
I guess for anyone who didn't listen to the Bookenders, which, it's possible that maybe has listened to this for the first time, want to give like a quick little introduction to them, like how you found them and got into them?
Sure. So I found this band when they were playing under their original name, Riot Squad, and this would have been in the mid to late 90s. They're from Dallas, Texas. They played Oklahoma City a lot. I got their 2 albums they put out as Riot Squad, and then they put out a 7-inch called Scary Picture Show. And then they were working on what was going to be their 3rd album and decided to change their name to the Staggers because there are a lot of bands called Riot Squad, and they legally were able to use the name. That wasn't the problem. I think they just wanted a change. And so they changed their name to the Staggers. In 1999, put out their album, The Sights, the Sounds, the Fear, and the Pain, which when you see this on streaming now, it says it came out in 2005. That's because that's when it was reissued. The original version is better. The track listing is different, but I digress. So I saw this band live lots of times during this era in the early 2000s, and they were just fucking unbelievable live. And on top of that, they're great guys. So that's kind of the band's story. The singer, Joe, has another band called Dog Company that he's been doing for a long time, and is doing some solo material now. His solo stuff is very country, almost gospel-y. And you can really, when you listen to the Staggers, you can hear that in these songs. They're just buried beneath Billy Blitz's, raging, rockabilly-esque guitar. He really looked up to Brian Setzer as a guitar player, and to some extent the Reverend Horton Heat guy, the main dude in that band. And I know he got to play with both of them at various times. And he was a phenomenal guitar player. He passed away a few years ago, unfortunately, and also just a sweetheart of a human being. But yeah, so they play a style of, most accurately called horror punk. Lots of their songs are about old B movies, but there's more than that going on this record. There's a song called Lost Souls, which is definitely not about a horror movie. It's about, people losing their way. There is a song called Abducted by Nazis in Hollywood, which is about how the media, drags us along. And then the album closes with an incredible cover of I Saw the Light, which they would do live. And when I saw them live, by the point they recorded this record, they had a different drummer, and he would do this drum solo at the end of the song. And it was just great. Everyone else would stop playing, and he would just go to town for a while. And then they would all come back in on cue, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, it's a really fun record. If you like horror punk stuff, it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you like something with a little twang too. It's not psychobilly too. That is like a distinction that I like to make, because it's got some country elements to it, but it is not doing it's not doing the Cramps. It's definitely not doing the Necromantics or any of those kind of bands either. So it's a really fun record. I really like it a lot. Yeah, it's a fun one to pull around Halloween, especially.
Oh yeah. And for a long time when I was really into this band, I thought I was really into psychobilly too. And I would listen to whatever I could get my hands on. And then one day I realized, oh no, I just really like the Staggers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are a couple of psychobilly bands I didn't hate, but, that was the psychobilly rockabilly genre was kind of ruined for me by this other amazing band, but that's a story for another day. And I guess we should move on.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess this would be number 2.
Number 2. Yeah. And we're just going to talk about the full length. I decided, because I didn't have really time to listen to the EP. And the album in question is Cuban Ballerina by Dead to Me.
Feels
And I know you love this album and you love this band.
Absolutely. I love this record. It is one of my all-time favorite albums. I love this album so much. I've listened to it front and back so many different times, singing along in the car at the top of my lungs as loud as I can. You know, anything you can do with this song, which is kind of hard because the lyrics aren't the easiest to understand in some of these songs, but I adore this album and this band in general. Like, I just like them. I don't love every record the same way I love this one, but gosh, this record's incredible. And they're just such talented people.
Agreed. Yeah. And I came to this band because the guitarist and one of the singers, Jack Darrell, was in the band One Man Army. And I got into One Man Army around that same time I was getting into Swingin' Utters and Dropkick Murphys and Hudson Falcons and all those bands, because they came up in that street punk scene, especially there was a very prominent street punk scene in the greater San Francisco Bay Area, and they were part of that. And so I was a huge, huge One Man Army fan. And when I found out Jack had this new band, I was so stoked. And I remember getting this, putting it on, and at first thinking, what? This is different. And I'm glad I had that reaction in a way, because it took me a while to get into it. Because unlike if you listen to Jack's progression in songwriting through One Man Army, you can definitely hear like how that songwriting then turned into Toy Guitar, his other band, or even some of the stuff he's done, the songs he wrote for Swingin' Utters. But Dead to Me is such a collaboration. It's him and Chicken, Tyson. I forget what Tyson's last name is.
Yeah, it's kind of a long name too. I think that's why he goes by Tyson or goes by Chicken.
Yeah.
Well, that and the Tyson.
So it is like, you can still hear the connective tissue, but it's doing something different because it's more collaborative. I think in a way, this is going to be a almost preposterous comparison. But if you think about the way that John and Paul wrote songs together on the Beatles versus what they did individually, and how individually their stuff sounded so different than what they did together as the Beatles. I think that with Jack and Chicken, it's kind of the same way. Now, because there are other members of the band, and I think this is a very collaborative band, when Jack left, the sound wasn't dramatically different. But then when he came back, it was like, oh, this is the missing ingredient. This is what we've been missing. And I had this moment where I realized, oh, these people were born to play music together and to create together. But yeah, once I got past this doesn't sound like just like One Man Army, then it really clicked. And like you, I love this album. Front to back, top to bottom, I know the entire thing, and I have loved it for 20 years. The whole thing is great. It's a perfect record. I think it has some just incredible songs. I love Something New. I love Special Professional. Then there's some just absolutely heart-wrenching stuff here. And that's the thing, when you really stop and you dig into the lyrics, you're like, man, these guys are going through some shit. This is, mental health music before mental health music was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Chicken, I think, has dealt with a lot of substance abuse problems throughout the years. He's talking about this publicly, so this isn't like speculating or anything like that. He has mentioned it before. And I think it's also part of why Dead to Me kind of goes hot and cold throughout the years as well, as far as output is concerned. There's a stretch there where they're really cranking stuff out. Like, they do the first records, they do the EP, and Jack leaves, and then they don't really waste a ton of time, and they, get a new replacement right away and do African Elephants, which is like much more Clash influenced of an album.
Yeah. That was a year after the Little Brother EP came out.
Yeah. So they were just like, let's keep going. And they did some more stuff a little bit through there, some EPs, some singles, and then that guy left, and then they brought in a couple guys from some Florida bands like Virgins and Gatorface and New Mexican Disaster Squad. So like a couple different Florida musicians, and that band, it changes again. Like, instead of being like a Clash sort of thing, it leans harder into more hardcore almost with Moscow Penny Ante. And then those guys leave again, or I guess more of Dead to Me goes on a hiatus for a pretty long time. And then Jack is back into the fold, and we get our first new music, which was what I Want to Die in Los Angeles, and they put out more songs since then. I'm hoping we get another album soon. I kind of think we are.
Well, that would be lovely. I would love another album. I know they've been performing. I think they played at Fest last year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they perform sporadically, which if that's what they need to do, because I mean, you know, at the level that they are, it's not like these can be day jobs. They're going to have day jobs, which is sad because this shit is so good. They should be able to just make a living off their music. But yeah, I think you're right with Chicken struggles, and then with Jack becoming a father, which was why he left the band in the first place, which made me like him even more. I'd met him when One Man Army was touring and played Oklahoma City. And I met him and actually the whole band, and they were all just absolute sweethearts. I couldn't say enough good things about them. So yeah, this record is so good. You know, Chicken came from that band Western Addiction. Mm-hmm. That is the name of it, right? Western Addiction. Okay. Yeah. I cannot get into them. Maybe I need to try it again, but I have not been able to get into them.
Yeah, he's in that band, but he wasn't the vocalist. I think he may have played bass in that band. It's more hardcore, more like, I guess you'd call it melodic hardcore, but yeah, it's faster, a little bit more aggressive. It's not as melodic, which is what I love about this record, the Dead to Me record. It's like the melodies are phenomenal. We have two incredible singers in the band who, when I say incredible singers, they have just a really cool voice. It's not like they're like the most technically proficient vocalists like that. To me, is not what makes an incredible singer. Yes, it's talent, but what I want is what Jack and what Chicken do on this record. You know, I don't even know how to describe Jack's voice.
Yeah, he doesn't sound like anyone.
No one. Yeah.
I've never heard anyone who has a similar voice to his. And it's great because it is so distinctive. You hear his background vocals on one of the newer Swingin' Utters records, and instantly you're like, oh, hey, that's Jack.
Hey, there's Jack. And he doesn't sing enough on those records, honestly.
No, he does not. But there are two other singers that sing a shitload, one of which all he does is sing.
Yeah. It is funny to have a full-time singer in your band, and then you're still like, how about everybody else sings songs too? they all sing, right?
Yeah.
Darius, Spike.
Spike did. He's not in the band anymore.
Yeah.
He did sing some songs. He was phenomenal in background vocals. And just a quick side note, Spike Slauson, that son of a bitch can sing. Oh my God. If you ever listen to those Me First and the Gimme Gimme records, man, that guy's got a great voice. But yeah, he would sing some songs, but the primary singers are Darius and Johnny. And then now Jack will do background vocals and he'll sing the occasional song.
Mm-hmm. Darius is... do you ever listen to Darius' solo records? He did 2, I think.
I tried the first one. I need to go back and try it again because for whatever reason, at the time I listened to it, it didn't click for me. Which is funny because... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's an acoustic record, mostly. I think it's sonically not too distant from what Filthy Thieving Bastards are doing, which is the other side project of the Swingin' Utters.
Yes, the side project, I think that came to be because people freaked out over the self-titled album being basically a country record.
Yeah. They're basically the same band, right? It's like maybe like one or two people, but as far as it's still Darius, Johnny...
Pretty much.
Spike in it too?
Spike was in it. They had a different drummer.
Yeah, that's like the only thing different, yeah. So whenever you would see Swingin' Utters, they would sometimes just play Filthy Thieving Bastards songs too.
Right, which I suspect in a different universe would just have been Utters songs. So
yeah, just cranked up, yeah.
Yep. Well, I guess we should move on to our final record, my favorite album of the 2000s. And so this would have been my favorite record either way, had I included stuff that I didn't listen to until after 2009, which there were 2 records that were in my kind of top 5 list that fit that category. One is Love Iron Song by Frank Turner, and the other one was the 59 Sound by the Gaslight Anthem. I didn't hear either of those until after 2010, hence not being here.
And I'd even say that their impact is probably more felt in the 2010s anyway, as far as their catalogs are concerned.
Yeah, I agree. So my favorite album is the Roustabouts, The Only One. And this is the record that I paid you guys to listen to.
Was it the first one?
It was.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It was, and this is, now, full disclosure, I have become friends with this band over the years. I've seen them probably more times than any other band live, and I love them as individuals. I love this record. I think it's so good. This is another band that came up in the street punk scene and had a hard time, like locally, they had a hard time getting rid of that aura, even as they were, evolving into more of a hot water music style band. And you hear the beginnings of that on The Only One, I think. You really hear it in, they put out in 2018 a collection called 4017, which was a bunch of stuff they recorded in like 2004, 2005 that had never been released. And it is very much very hot water music-y. So very org core type stuff. And then two of the guys would go on and form a band later on called Don't Make Ghosts that have released 2 EPs. And it's still the same evolution. You can, if you go from this album, The Only One, listen to 4017 and then listen to those 2 Don't Make Ghost records, you can hear Nick's songwriting and Jesse's, who's the bass drummer, his evolution as a drummer as well. But yeah, remind me, what you liked this, correct?
Yeah. We both enjoyed it, Dylan and I. We both thought it was really good. Dylan's always the wild card when it comes to a record too, so it's always like, what's he gonna think of it? It is funny that he's like that. Which is also funny because I tend to have the most negative reaction to records, and it is just funny that like you just never know where Dylan's gonna land on the spectrum of how much he enjoys it. But yeah, I remember having a good time listening to the record. Look, there wasn't a ton of research to find about them because they are such a some regional band, I guess is how you would describe them.
Yeah, I want to say you'd said that every amount of research you found was something I wrote.
Yeah, like everything was coming back to you. And I was like, oh, well, you are essentially the expert on this band on the internet today, at least, besides the people who are in the band or were in the band.
Yeah. And in 2018, when they released that collection, they reunited for a show around Christmas time. And God, it was so good seeing them again for the first time in many, many years, because it's the time I'd seen them previously. They played a whole bunch of songs that had not been released, and it was stuff that ended up on 4017. But at the time, I didn't know any of those songs, so yeah. I was stoked to see them, but then very disappointed because I didn't know what the hell any of the songs were. So the set that they played, they were kind enough to ask me for suggestions of what songs to play, and so yeah, I could not have picked a better set, I think, than they played that night. It was so good. They're they're up there in my top 10 favorite bands of all time.
Yeah, it's a really fun record. I guess sonically, it's kind of in the vein of everything we have been talking about today. If in the 2000s, you certainly had a sound that you were particularly listening to, and And all of these bands kind of have like different varying levels to how much of it is present in their music. But yeah, it's revisiting it because it's been a few years since you had us cover it. I had as much fun listening back to it as I did the first couple times for the show. So it was nice to kind of come back to, because that's something that sometimes doesn't happen with the show. Like, we'll cover a record and do an episode on it, and then I may never come back to it, even if I like it too, like, or had a really good time with it. But just like, I think the process of like thinking about a record, you know, deeply for a week straight or 2 weeks, depending on what the time is, but kind of like messes with your desire to like want to keep listening. But
it can. You get almost too analytical about something, and it can take away your just emotional enjoyment of it. Yeah.
So it is funny how it's almost like covering a record on the show means I won't listen to it for at least a few years after that.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's my list.
That's good. That's a really fun list. I like the idea of choosing the time frame of 2000s, what you would listen to in the 2000s. Is there anything here that you would, I assume the answer is no, but is there anything here that you would have not even considered if you had just gone with anything from the 2000s, no matter when you'd heard it?
No, it would basically be a case of, okay, what's going to get bumped lower on the list because I'm inserting the 59 sound or I'm inserting Love Iron Song. I mean, that's really it. It would, like, I probably would have talked about 59 sound instead of the Warriors Code or something like that. Exactly what order I would have come up with, it would depend on the day probably. Because, you know, ask me in a couple months to make this list again, and it's probably going to be different depending on my mood, except Roustabouts is going to be number one. Actually, I say that. Roustabouts number one and Cuban Ballerina number two are pretty solid. Those are pretty much locked in, but the rest could vary depending on my mood. But yeah, you're right. I definitely, in the 2000s and early 2000s especially, had a sound that I was really into. Now this was pre-streaming, so you actually had to go buy shit. We did not have good internet. Oh, and also I had young children.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's a major factor in music interest, and even if you have the desire to listen, you may not have the time to listen. So that is kind of the idea of, like, people tend to fall off on new music when they have kids and families. So makes sense. And if you're just like, I have so many, funds, I don't have an idea of what everything is going to sound like. So I know what path I like. So I know where to go to find similar sounding things to things I already like that I'm going to have a higher chance of enjoying. So it makes sense. We all kind of, I think we had to. Like, you found like a scene and a sound that you kind of glommed onto. And it was like, if it's in this little scene, then it's safe. And I know I can listen to it. And I'll probably enjoy it.
Yes. Yeah. We find, especially as we get older, I think, we find those things that we really like. We find our lane. And we tend to stay in our lane. And is that the most adventurous thing in the world? No. Is there anything wrong with it? Also, no. If that's what you really like and that's what you want to do, then great. I still love a lot of this stuff. I don't listen to, street punk related stuff is not my primary listening anymore, but it's still a big part of what I listen to. So yeah, these are records that stick with me. A year does not go by where I don't listen to all of these records at least a few times.
Well, Dave, thank you for doing the show with me. When I envisioned this show, I wanted to get guests on that we've never talked to before, but then I also wanted to bring on people that we have talked to in the past. So I definitely wanted to have you on early, and we got you in the first, 4 or 5? Yeah, you're episode 4, so you're in there early. We got a few more people that we've been talking about, and we'll probably get on the show at some point soon, too. So,
well, I'm enjoying this show so far. I've really liked what you've done. I've loved the interview segments part of it, and I can't wait to hear who you have on next.
Me too, because I have a hard rule of I don't try and book a guest until I have one completely done, edited, and posted. So
all right.
We'll see who our next guest is. It's a mystery to me. It's whoever comes across my radar and, like, the day I decide I'm gonna look for somebody. That's usually how it winds up. But
Nice.
But I appreciate you. I thank you for doing it. Everyone, you should go follow Dave on Substack. That is the primary outlet that you're putting out your creative works there. And social media, we can follow you there, I suppose, if you'd like us to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do much on social media anymore, really. If for whatever reason you decide you want to follow what I'm doing, the Substack, oklahomalefty.substack.com is probably the best way. Or you can look up Oklahoma Lefty on social media, and if I'm there, it'll be under that handle.
Yeah. Has anyone ever stolen the handle from you on a platform you don't use?
Not that I know of. I grab it pretty quickly, generally, at least when I was really paying attention and doing stuff like that. I'm sure other people have used it. Well, someone else has a Oklahoma Lefty at Yahoo email address. That one's not mine.
Yeah.
So mine is the Gmail one. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure someone else has used it. But at this point, I've been using it for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
So
it's a good handle. It stands out. I mean, if you Google Oklahoma Lefty, it's probably Dave. It's nobody else, really.
It's me and like some baseball player.
All right. Well, I thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you. And everyone else, thank you so much. Check out the links in the show notes. And we will talk to you next time.
To order Forever Young by credit card or COD, call now